Ohio State coach Ryan Day has been pretty candid today about what it's been like in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center since Michigan came in to Ohio Stadium and beat Ohio State about 8 days ago, I guess it was. And even though it was a day of celebration today, Ohio State getting into the playoff and now being excited about what's ahead next, going to play Georgia in the Peach Bowl, he admitted that it was a rough few days. Even though they got back to work, even though they started planning for the playoff, a tough start to the week emotionally. So now that they're back in, now that they're going to be on the field playing for a chance to go to the national championship game, Steven, how much does just now being a playoff team, which is something that wasn't guaranteed on Saturday night, does it help sort of turn the narrative of this season and the way that things looked after Saturday, kind of the depressed attitude across the fan base, or do you now have to go win in order to really recapture something here?
I think you got to win to erase what that was, because it is back-to-back losses that were pretty emphatic, one of which was in your backyard. For two people specifically, of course, Ryan Day, he's now 1-2 in the rivalry, and we're talking about a situation where they might rematch in the national championship if they beat Georgia, but that also just means they might have 2 losses to Michigan in a calendar year. It might mean that they have 3 straight losses to Michigan now, and one of them was on a neutral field, and the other one was at home. And then also for C.J. Stroud, he needs a talking point. We did a series of, Mount Rushmores for each position, and kind of saving a last spot for somebody at the time. We thought it was going to be Quinn Ewers, but maybe now it's C.J. Stroud. Where it can't be C.J. Stroud when you're 0-2 against Michigan and you've never played in a playoff game, or you've never won a playoff game. If he goes and wins a national championship, it at least equals those two things out. Like, you lost to Michigan twice, but you also brought this team a national championship, which it hasn't done in a decade. And some of the other guys we had on that list don't have a national championship. So for Day and Stroud specifically, I think they need to win it till we completely erase the fact that they've lost the last 2 games to Michigan.
So they have to not just win against Georgia, they have to win the whole thing.
I think so, yes.
I'm torn because on the one hand, this is not where Ohio State wanted to be. They didn't, as much as Ryan Day said, like, hey, the whole plan is just to be in the top 4 of the CFP at the end of the year. They were the number 2 team going into the Michigan game. They would rather have been in control of their own destiny, and I think they would rather not be playing Georgia in Atlanta in the first round, no matter what he says. At the same time, because of the nature of that matchup and because it's the playoff semifinals, I think it's not so much about winning, but you just had somebody come into your house and shove you around in your rival on top of that. I think you, at the very least, have to go to Georgia and make them fight until the very end of that game to win. It can't be a game where you go down and it looks like you didn't belong on the field, because that's going to cause some real questions. You can still talk about one game. I know it was 2 games because it goes back to last year, but you can still say this team was great for 11 weeks, had 5 blown plays and a bad half on defense, and that cost them that game, and you can set that aside. But if they go down and get just wiped off the field by Georgia, it looks bad for them, and I think it also kind of carries some fatigue or just those bad feelings into the offseason, and what's going to be a pretty crucial offseason for a team that thought it was going to be great again in 2023. Doug, just your thoughts about how crucial this next game is for just sort of turning the thought around here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the idea of, like, you want to go take your shot, right, and you want to put your best foot forward. I don't think that means you have to beat the defending national champions in their backyard, or bust. And the idea of, like, well, you lost to Michigan and you thought you weren't going to make the playoff, and now you made the playoff. Like, well, you better win the national title. It's like, man, that's like a tough world to live in, man. Like, now you have to go win the thing that, like, you never thought you were going to have a chance to do. But I do think you have to. The thing that Ryan Day said on Sunday a lot was we want to play loose, right? And then it's like, well, if you keep saying you want to play loose, does that mean you thought you played tight against Michigan? And so, like, let it all hang out. So I think the 2 things to me would be play that way, puncher's chance, take your shot, and then like don't have blown plays. Right, the things against, like, the big plays you gave against Michigan, like, don't come out and, like, let Stetson Bennett make 4 50-yard throws because you blew coverage. Like, so those 2 things to me are just look like a little more competent, like, defensively, and then just let it all hang out. And then Ryan Day said this number a lot. He said, looking at the college football playoff, you got to score like in the 40s. The winners score in the 40s. So, like, if you go down and lose 45-38 and you just, man, George is like, I think there's something real to that. Now, does it wipe out Michigan? No. but does it allow you to have something in the offseason, even in defeat? I think it would. And I think it would be like, man, we were left for dead and we took our shot. But to your point, if you go and it looks a lot like it did against Michigan, then it's like, oh, we're like confirming the things that we, So I don't think they have to win. I think they have to let it all hang out and take a good shot.
There were times against Michigan that it just looked too easy for Michigan. Whether it was those big touchdown plays, whether it was only scoring 3 points in the second half, I think they have to make it look hard for Georgia if they're going to end up losing that game. Much more about this on Buckeye Talk over the next month. Get it wherever you can find podcasts, and get the text 614-350-3315. We're texting right to your phone every day about Ohio State football and the transactions that are happening and the analysis and the intel we're hearing. And it's $3.99 a week, $3.99 a month after a 2-week free trial from Buckeye Talk.